Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Skill Snippet, where we're going to be talking about judgment. Now, for those of you who have listened to our podcast before, or maybe even attended the 3-day class, you've heard us talk about judgment quite a bit. We've talked about it in the context of how it can prevent us from really listening well to our partner, and how we've talked about how it can really tend to set us on this track of having conflict as opposed to really effective confrontation using all of the other skills that we've talked about. So if we know that judgment at its very worst causes harm, and even at its very best is still just flat out not helpful, why do we do it? And a lot of times I think it comes from this place of us not even being aware that we're judging the person at all. You see, we all have these unique, deep-seated needs and values within ourselves. And those needs and values give rise and shape to our opinions of how we see the world. They help us to filter through what we think is right and wrong, which means that whenever our partner behaves in a way that kind of doesn't align with those needs and values that we have, instead of seeing them as just different, we tend to look at the behavior as being wrong. And when we say wrong, we don't even look at that as being a judgment. We can start to, in our head, assume that it's a fact. But if we step back and remember that our partner has their own unique needs and values that are internal to who they are as a person, and that those are also shaping their opinions and their attitudes about the way that they're perceiving and operating in life, it also helps us to remember that that's where their behaviors are coming from. And that can be a helpful reminder for us to have. So what would it look like for us if we were to try to take a shift? What if we could actually intentionally separate out the judgments that we're making about our partner from the actual behavior that we're seeing? So let's remember that behavior has to be something tangible. It can't be argued with. You can see it, you can hear it. The judgments are where a lot of the opinions come in, or the assumptions that we make about our partner. So maybe instead of, you don't care about having a close relationship with our son, which would be the judgment, the behavior might be, hey, you sent our son to his room without letting him have a chance to share his side. Instead of, you're stubborn and you don't care about the facts, the behavior might be, hey, you voted for somebody differently than I did. Instead of saying the judgment of, hey, you don't care about any of the work that I do around the house, it's like it has no value to you, it might be the behavior of, you didn't mention today all the extra work that I did around the house. Instead of, you never want to spend time with me, it might be the specific behavior that, hey, the last 2 times that I asked if we could hang out in the evenings, you said you really didn't feel up for it. Do you feel the difference between those two? It can have a difference both internally and externally, right? An impact on how we think about our partner as well as how we're interacting with them. Because when we re-ground ourselves in the actual behavior, we become more open. We're more open to hearing our partner's perspective. We leave ourselves open to this option of choosing positive intent that our partner has, assuming that. But sometimes in the moment, we realize that saying that, if we even have the ability to recognize that option at all, it can feel kind of vulnerable. So instead, we fall back on these judgments, right? Sometimes because we feel justified, sometimes because it feels stronger, or just because, honestly, taking the time to make that vulnerable statement of what we've actually witnessed can feel like a lot of hard work. But where does it get us? When we choose to interact with our partner through this lens of resentment or judgment, it can lead to resentment. So where does it get us? If we continue to use judgments, both in our head and in the words that we use with our partner, it can lead to a lot of resentment. It can lead to distance in the relationship. And in our conversations with one another, it certainly does not do anything to create an environment where our partner is going to want to engage in communication, at least not productive and helpful communication. So when we choose to assume positive intent, when we can remind ourselves that our partner's behavior is coming from their own unique needs and values, and we can make sure that we're having dialogue around the actual behavior instead of these judgments that we're making about our partner, we're much more likely to strengthen our relationship and to build and maintain connection. So I would challenge you for the rest of today, or maybe the rest of the week, try to be mindful of how many times you catch yourself thinking or saying a judgment. trace it back. What is the specific behavior or lack of behavior that's causing you to make that judgment? And then if you have the ability, take some time to think about, what need or value do I have that's really causing me to have this type of reaction? Because I think the more that we can move to this environment where we withhold judgment and are open to listening and to better understanding our partners, the more productive our conversations are going to be and the stronger and healthier our relationships will be.